Hey guys, welcome back to yet another episode on my channel where I review wireless audio products. And today, what we have here is a Sony Bluetooth speaker here, Sony. Okay, and it is about the size of, well, I think the Sonos Move for all those who are familiar with the Sonos Move. So without further ado, let's dive right into the video and see what this guy has to offer. Now, inevitably, when a speaker comes in this form factor, where it's a cylindrical shape, people will tend to think that, well, that resembles the Sonos Move, but the Sonos Move is very popular. It's a portable Bluetooth capable speaker, which is also Wi-Fi capable, and it has a built-in battery. But this Sony here, it doesn't have a built-in battery, but the similarities are abound. Let's talk about the similarities. Now, first off, it accepts a Bluetooth connection. The Sonos Move is the first Sonos speaker to accept a Bluetooth connection as well. And recently it's been joined by the Sonos Roam, which incidentally has been released about half a year ago, right about the same time as this Sony Bluetooth speaker here. But of course, the size here is actually much more similar to the Sonos Move than the Sonos Roam. Weight-wise, this is about 2.5 kg. The Sonos Move is 3 kg. And shape-wise, this is more cylindrical, whereas as compared to the Move is slightly flatter, and the Move doesn't claim a really 360 sound effect, whereas this, if you look at how the speakers are arranged inside, there are two tweeters on this side. Well, actually the tweeters are at the end. They have tubes running all the way up. If I could switch the angle and you could see it a little bit better, you can see some of those tubes here. You could see this, right? The lighting will be controlled. The tweeters are at the bottom. It throws the sound out and it comes out these two ways. To the side, there are two passive radiators and there is a woofer which is built in, firing up front. Now, there's a diffuser plate which is built in here. It actually kind of disperses the sound 360 degrees all around, well, all around you. That sounds familiar. But anyway, the idea is that you can put this anywhere in the room and it should be able to throw a very convincing sound stage wherever you are. So the sound blends into the room very, very well. So the sound is not just going to be thrown left to right and filling around the room on a single plane, it's also going to be thrown upwards. Now, when that happens, you actually need a little bit of clearance. So it does impact the placement of this speaker. You can't just place it anywhere you want. You can't shove it at the, within the recess area and hope that the sound gets around the whole room. This is touted as an ambient sounding speaker, so you do have to give it some space to the side as well as to the top of it in order for it to perform its best. And on that point, Sony boasts a 360-degree reality audio. I did not quite test that functionality. I think you need some special software or you need to be subscribed to Diesel or Tidal or one of those services, I think. And Amazon Music is going to be coming out with Amazon Music HD, which will also support the 360-degree spatial audio. Although that may not be coming to Singapore anytime soon. I'm not sure when. That's Amazon's call. But when it does come, it will be supported on the Sony SRS-RA3000 speaker here. Now, in terms of Amazon, it does also support the voice service, which is Alexa. It also supports Google, Hey. Yep. And the Google Assistant is supported. It does have a built-in mic, although the built-in mic is not used for those vocal voice assistant. So the voice assistant, you do need other devices and you instruct those devices, which will then play on this speaker here. So you can't actually interact with this guy with voice. The mic is actually used for one purpose, which is for hearing, for the speaker to pick up the sounds from around the room when it's playing. So it has auto calibration. So what auto calibration does is it tries to pick out whether the music is getting a little bit too loud, whether the frequencies are reverbing, and whether any parts of the songs, any part of the frequency band is actually breaking up, and then it will pull those frequencies down. Or if the frequencies are being phased out, cancelled out, it will also adjust the sound accordingly. Now, so technically, even if you shove it right into the corner of the room, it is still going to be able to pick up if the bass is boosted too high by the boundaries of the room, by the room boundaries. Then this particular feature where it tries to correct the sound will kick in, and you will be able to hear the speaker adapt to its surrounding based on the input, based on itself listening through that microphone. So in terms of connectivity, it is also a Wi-Fi speaker on top of a Bluetooth speaker. So Spotify Connect will be able to go direct, and you are able to use Sony's own music app to connect to this, and you can set it up in a multi-room setup where all the speakers, you can have multiple of these, or you can have another one of the big brother, which is the SRS-RA3000, which will be connected in another room, and all the music will play in tandem. And more importantly, I think recently you have been hearing me talk a lot about this, which is a line in here. So there is a line in port which you can just plug in. Okay, where you can just plug in and you can play from your laptop, you can play from your phone if it has a 3.5mm output, or any MP3 player from your computer or whatever, right? Basically, having an input 3.5mm input port is extremely versatile. Although you do have to manage the volume on both the source device as well as on the speaker. Now on the speaker, if you look at the top, let me switch the angle again. If you look at the top, you will have your play and pause button. You can have volume control. And, well, this is really loud now. You can have the volume control minus and plus, and this selects the line in. This selects the Spotify Connect or any streaming services. This selects the Bluetooth. And this particular button here activates the 360 sound. So if you click this button, it will allow the speaker, allow Sony's own proprietary algorithm to take any source of stereo input and throw a 360-degree sound stage. But when 360-degree sound is engaged, don't be surprised by what you hear, because basically it alters the music slightly, so you are not actually hearing a proper stereo sound stage. The sound will be very wide. The sound feels like it's encompassing you, so it is particularly suited for jazz and that kind of ambient background music where you play, you let it play, and you can't actually quite localize where this particular speaker is. It just kind of fills up the entire space, entire room with sound. Now, I have a pretty tall ceiling where I'm seated and where I'm testing this speaker. The ceiling is about 4.2 meters tall here. If I step about 2 meters away from the speaker, or maybe slightly more than that, it does give a pretty convincing sound that, that it is well blended into the room. You can't actually quite pinpoint where the speaker sound is coming from. It's definitely not, unless you see the speaker, then of course you know where the sound is coming from. And as typical in my channel, I do a lot of speaker testing, and I actually go quite in depth into things. I try to even measure a frequency response. So no exception for this speaker, I will run through a frequency sweep from 20 Hertz all the way to 20 kilohertz, 20,000 Hertz. And I will measure the response so you can see for yourself what kind of sound you are likely to get from this particular speaker here. So you can go about comparing with some of the other videos I've done before. So you have a rough idea, okay, this is probably how it's going to sound like. Okay, so here I have pulled up the chart that you will see in green here. All right, so this is the dark green line. And if you look at where it peaks out, this is at 50% volume. This is a Sony SRS-RA3000 at 50% volume. And the volume here is peaking out at about 148 Hertz on the low end. So this is your bass frequencies hitting up to 100 dB. Now the mic is placed about 8 inches away from the speaker, so it is pretty close. It's not really the distance that you will be listening to things at, but I try to standardize so that it's easier and we cut away all the room reflections by close miking for this particular test. Now on the top range, you will see that it picks out at about 7.5 kilohertz, and following that, it will just tail off. Now, I've smoothed it out so it looks like that. It doesn't look like it is a very bass capable speaker, because you want to hear 50 hertz, you want to hear 45 hertz before you think that the speaker is going to sound great in the bass department. But trust me, when you're listening to this guy, you will not find bass lacking because of what is known as computational audio. So computational audio, it analyzes the sound that is processing, and when there's a need for more bass, it actually tries to push in. Now, computational audio actually plays a lot of tricks with all these kind of frequency response sweep, because frequency response sweep means that you play 20 hertz, 21 hertz, 22 hertz, and so on, all the way up to 20,000 hertz. Now, what it doesn't allow is that it doesn't allow the Sony algorithm to look at the frequencies and try to pull them down or up. So there is the magic is kind of like not applied in the frequency sweep. So when you're actually listening to this particular speaker, you will find that the bass isn't lacking at all. Now, this is at 50% volume, and this is without the 360 reality audio turned on in the speaker. Now I'm going to load up another curve, and this is the rate curve. So if I highlight the rate curve, you will see that it changes the profile, the sound characteristic of the speaker slightly, and the low end, it loses just a tiny little bit. Maybe the mid-range, you will increase just a little bit, but thereafter, I think after about 700 hertz or so, for most way, actually, the frequency drops. Now, I'm not sure how Sony implements this algorithm to create that 360 reality audio sound, but this is what I'm measuring. And if you ask me, it really depends on whether you are trying to listen to this speaker critically or not. If you want to have some critical listening, you should definitely try to turn off the 360 reality audio. And if you are listening critically, you should download the Sony app and make sure that the equalizer is turned off. But really, for a slightly more exciting sound, you should actually enable the 360-degree reality audio, and you can play around with the EQ settings a little bit. It has a multi-band equalizer you can control, and there are a few presets which will make the sound a lot more exciting, a lot more interesting. Of course, if you try to go overboard with the bass, especially when there are stronger parts of the bass playing in the soundtrack, the speaker itself, it will adjust itself such that it will not overtax the amplifiers or exceed the driver specification. So this is what all the new speakers out there are doing. They call this computational audio. So it tries to make sure that the speaker doesn't blow itself out and your music doesn't sound distorted. But this is usually at the expense of some kind of volume. Now I'll talk about that in a little bit. So for comparison purposes, what I will do is I will pull up a JBL Flip 5. Now, this curve in blue is a JBL Flip 5, same at 50% volume. Now, the Flip 5 is, of course, a much smaller speaker than this. Oh, well, actually, it's sitting right behind me, that red speaker there. That's the JBL Flip 5. It is comparatively a lot smaller. I think in terms of volume, probably 5 or 6 times smaller. And obviously you won't get that kind of same size magnet. So the volume, like for like at 50%, is definitely not going to be as loud. So it's only peaking out at about 95 dB or so. So a good 5 odd dB here. The sound profile looks roughly similar, except that the high end, for some reason, is actually tuned pretty high. And for the bass, you definitely don't get that kind of volume. Now, I wanted to talk about this, about computational audio, about the speakers, about all these new smart speakers trying their very best to ensure that the driver dimension, the driver specifications are not breached, the amps are not overtaxed, and everything goes through without distortion. What I did was, okay, I'm going to remove the JBL, and I will remove this 360 curve. So you just look at the green, this like dark green curve. This is the original one, original Sony sound profile at 50% volume. Now I'm going to raise it 100% volume. So what happens at 100% volume? You would imagine that the sound is going to be a lot louder, but actually it is not the case, because what happens is that Sony, this particular speaker here, it actually detects that you are trying to increase the volume beyond what the driver itself can handle. And bear in mind, at 50% volume, this particular speaker is already plenty loud. So I kind of like, I was sitting within 2 feet of the speaker when I was doing the testing, and I kind of had to like, block out the sound a little bit because test tone was getting a little bit too loud. So what happens is that the speaker detects that it is way too loud, and it tries to pull down the frequency so that the amp's parameters are not breached, the driver's parameters are not breached. So is it a good thing? Well, in a way, it ensures that your music comes out clean, it doesn't sound broken. So yes, it helps you temper the volume a little bit, so you don't have to worry too much about bursting the speakers should you raise the volume too high. Because of the computational audio, what happens is that it creates a soundstage that is not the traditional stereo soundstage. It tries to make the sound difficult to isolate. So you can't actually tell that, oh, it is coming from this speaker here, it's coming from there and there. It is not the traditional soundstage that we are all used to listening to. In this kind of speaker where it tries to portray a 360-degree feel of sound, what happens is that positional cues are actually often lost, which is not a bad thing depending on what you're using this speaker for. For bedroom sound, for quiet sound, for background sound, for ambient sound, this is great. You know, in a lot of new houses in Singapore today, where the apartment is quite small, this, you put it at one corner, it should be able to throw out quite a convincing, soothing music to the whole room or even a small hall that you are looking at. If you're going to try to use this for gaming, I would certainly not recommend that, because while you can do that, there's an input jack here, which means there will be no lag introduced by Bluetooth, but you are going to lose quite a bit of all those positional cues that your game demands. So when you hear gunshot, you do need to know where the gunshot is coming from, right? Whether it's on the left or it's on the right, or maybe even slightly to the rear. Whereas with this particular speaker, it's going to sound like it's coming from all over the place. So that will not work. All right, and with that, we have come to the end of this video. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. And if you're considering this speaker, I would say that the list price in Singapore is $400 odd. Sometimes they run a promotion now, is mid $400, and you can probably get it for less if there's a discount going on. I won't bother listing the price. I'm not trying to sell this speaker. I'm just telling you my experience with this speaker. So no affiliate links, nothing of this sort. So if you are keen to look at this guy, consider the speaker for its ability to play ambient music. Not quite the accurate positional soundstage that we audiophiles are used to. So if you want something that is easy to place, looks really, really great with a black fabric and gold bronze accent, or is it copper, I don't know, then the Sony SRS-RA3000 might be the ticket. I'll see you in my next video.